Thank you, Chris. Thank y'all. First of all, thank y'all for being here. I know she's told y'all how to fill out the cards and all that, so if you haven't done that, make sure you can do it, so we get those questions answered. But again, this is a good showing. We appreciate that. I know it's kind of a nasty night, but we still get a good showing because there's a lot of stuff going on in the city of Kenner. And there's a lot of things that we need to discuss with you all and update you all. This city, just like the rest of this country, this world has been through a pandemic. We've also been through one major storm, and also somewhat of a storm that impacted the city of Kenner, Zeta, a year ago. So pandemic, Zeta, pandemic, rise again, and then less than 100 days ago, we have Ida. With that said, there's a lot that we've had to do, a lot that we've had to get through. Catastrophic damage to our city hall buildings. When I showed up, and I will recognize the council, when I showed up the day after Ida at City Hall, the National Guard was there, and actually Councilman Pistada was with me, and we toured it immediately. And he is here, our Jefferson Parish Councilman's here, Dominic Pistada in the back. He can tell you, along with me and the other council people, that it was catastrophic. The City Hall buildings, the roofs were ripped off. Every building in the city of Kenner has suffered some type of damage. And that's what we want to go over. We want to go over what's happened and where we are and where we're going. Before I get started, I want to recognize the elected officials that are with us. Christy, I know George has to go, but Christy, you can come up here if you want to. Christy's in the back. Christy McKinney at large. No particular order, Councilman George Brannick from District 4, the district that we're in. Councilman Hayes is supposed to be sitting up here, but he's also here somewhere. Councilman Hayes from District 3. District 2 Councilman Mike Segura. And our District 5 Councilman Brian Brennan. I think I got everybody that's here. And I appreciate them being here because it shows the support, all of us working together to make sure this city continues to move forward. Our recovery, just like your homes, you suffered damage more than likely. Most residents in the city of Kenner said some type of damage. We're still recovering just like you are recovering. We will continue to do that. Big question that's always come up, and before we go into the debris collection, is why are we here? Why are we here tonight? And why are we here, period? Well, there's not many places in the city of Kenner that will hold us. And what I mean by that is city government. We hired a real estate agent to come in and actually look for anything comparable to put City Hall government back in. Because early on, my goal was, along with this council, is to get the people situated and get them rebuilt. At some point, we had to have a place to work out of. Early on, we were working out of the parking lot, doing what we had to do. Numerous council people here, numerous volunteers were out there helping give out food, ice, and water very early on, I think like the second day after. So then we had to go someplace for ourselves. First thing was to make sure that we had code enforcement back up and running. Code enforcement was the most important thing besides the first responders. Our police and our fire did a great job. But we needed to get code enforcement up and running. Code enforcement so you could get the permits that you needed and get told what you didn't need a permit for. We came here because there's only two places that would house city government. This, that has been vacant for before I was mayor, and the Burlington Center store. But we always hoped, like what's happening in reality, the Burlington store is coming back into retail. So that's a good thing, because we don't want to take away from retail. I don't think we were taking anything away from here. I don't think anybody was beating down the door to come in here. So we came in here, and as you see, if you haven't toured it, and we are going to schedule a tour for constituents, for residents of the city of Kenner, so you can see it. As you can see, everything's temporary. But it's temporary for me, it's temporary for departments, my executive staff, my directors, and also for the council. Right behind that door right there, we built it out for the council. And to my understanding, except for maybe a councilman who wanted to stay in South Kenner, which I understand, every councilman has an office here, and they are utilizing it. So I appreciate them coming here, sending their staff here, and giving back councilmatic services also, besides the city services. We will schedule very shortly a tour of this building, probably after Christmas, to show everybody what we're doing here and how we're doing it. This is our council, this is their council chambers, as the way we set it up. A lot of the stuff you hear tonight, if you go to the council meetings, or if you watch the council meetings, you've already heard it. But a lot of people aren't doing that. So we got to get this message out to everybody, and it's time to have a town hall meeting because of all the things that we've been through. With that said, we've had more power lines down with debris than ever before, even Katrina. Ida was one of the worst storms that we have suffered through. So the debris was something we had to do. Residents are cleaning up their homes. We're cleaning up public right-of-ways. It's been a long time. I get it. It takes a while. But I've already told you what we had to do first. Now we're getting to the public right-of-ways. You've seen a big push lately on how we're handling that. I got to give credit to Chad Pitfield, Deputy CEO, who took this and ran with it and handled most of that with his crews. He has a lot of people that work under him, Mark Larioso, and also Kenny Melvin, and they've done a great job under his direction. So first I'm going to ask Chad to come up and give a little update. I'll come back up and tell you about our next speaker. There'll be 2 more speakers after that, and then obviously the council can weigh in if they want to weigh in. Chad?
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, good evening to y'all as well. Yes, the mayor was absolutely correct when he said that I do have some amazing people that work under me, because this can't be done by any one single person alone. We did start that night of the storm, as you probably heard me give a presentation before, 11 o'clock at night when we tried to go out and assess the city. Couldn't do it. We had some high water. We had down trees everywhere. We couldn't get around the city streets. We immediately started as soon as we could clearing out streets so we could make our hospital accessible, something very important to our residents. They can get to the hospital. Immediately, our municipal emergency response team, that MERT team, the guys that you see in the bright yellow shirts, probably the only day Mark hasn't worn his today, so you'll see those guys. Those are guys that we've handpicked around from the different city groups, different city departments, recreation, parkways, public works, and so forth. Those are the guys that get special training. You know, look, operating chainsaws at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, we need to make sure it's not the first time somebody's ever put a chainsaw in their hand, right? So those guys did a phenomenal job. Starting the next morning, we had some contract crews come in, do some initial pushes to help us clear out those public streets, those main thoroughfares, and then we moved to the actual cleanup part. We're a little bit over 90 days on it. We're actually hoping, I had a meeting this afternoon with our debris contractor who is still out and running. We're hoping to maybe be done by the end of next week, wrapping up before Christmas time. Look, I know a lot of people are just getting their insurance checks back. I, for one, had to send it off to the mortgage company, get it endorsed, get it back, and do all of that stuff. We realize a lot of people are still doing that. We're seeing debris piles that we're picking up that are they're replenishing themselves the next day because the people needed space in their front yard, right? So we gave them space by picking it up, so they had to put more back out there. We realize this is going to be a process that's going to continue for some time. You can still send in your email address. Look, I have driven every single street and have physically looked at every single house in the city over the past 90 days looking for debris. The devastation that our city took was tremendous. Our city got impacted. The impact to our city was it's mind-boggling to look and see some people's houses. And look, you hear the stories. We've gotten out and talking to people that don't have insurance, people that are still looking for help, and people that need help. We have a long way to go, but we're getting there. So far today, we've done about 139,000 cubic yards of vegetative debris and about 98,000 cubic yards of C&D. That's your carpet, sheetrock, shingles, so forth. And that's going to continue. IV waste, once the debris contractors leave, have no fear, IV is going to be there with their boom truck that's going to go around and do those collections. It may take a little bit longer because it's going to be a lot less crews. But at some point when we make that final pass, which we're doing right now, there's a certain time where the debris contractors have to be cut off. That's why we're doing the final pass. We have the email address up. For anybody that hasn't had it before, if you see an address, if your neighbor has some debris out, Ida Debris at kenner.la.us. The subject line, please put the physical address, and we'll make sure we send that out to them. So if you do see any, please send it to us soon. We do have a bunch of crews that are still here that will remain here through next week while they clean up the site at the Pontchartrain Center as well. So again, your neighbors, you have something out, please let us know. But we're going street by street and looking at every single yard and getting everything that we can. Ida Debris at kenner.la.us. Are we doing questions now? Are we saving them all at the end? would do the cards.
And then next card for your question.
Well, I didn't know what the agenda was, so I didn't know what questions to put down, but I do have a question I'd like to
Let
ask.
me give you an index card so the presentation can continue, and then we'll get back to your question.
So like I said, when I started off, I talked about the city hall buildings that were either destroyed, damaged, so on. We've had a lot of that. I've already talked about every building has been hit in some kind of way. We've done a lot of work. We've hired some good groups that have come in. I told you how it looked the day we got there. It looked like someone just peeled the sardine can off the roofs at the main campus. A lot of other places, gyms. We hear a lot of times, why are the gyms not open? You're about to hear why. We've said this numerous times publicly at council meetings. We've said it on social media. We will continue to say it. We, just like a resident, are working with insurance companies. We're working with adjusters. We're trying to get through that also. We want to restore all the activities at the gyms and at other buildings. We would love to have a city hall complex that's permanent. Those things are going to take time. So I'm going to ask Deborah Foshee to come up. She has handled all the buildings. Like I said, Chad handled the debris. Deborah has handled the buildings. She has given this report before. She'll tell you who we've hired. She'll tell you where we are with getting a new city hall, getting someplace else, doing something. But in the meantime, everything's temporary. Deborah?
Thank you. And thank you for coming out tonight. It's great to have this opportunity. I know we've given this presentation a bunch, but I think it's probably been to the same folks, and I'm seeing some new faces out here, so I'm glad that we have this opportunity to chat. The first thing that happened with the city buildings was the mitigation and stabilization phase. In other words, we had to go in and see what was going on, put temporary roofs on everything. This is not my PowerPoint, so hold on. Go ahead and roll up to the next one. Okay, stop there. All right, so what we had to do really is go and figure out how damaged we were. FEMA requires you put in an initial assessment, and the initial assessment that we made based upon the preliminary evaluation is we have $69 million worth of damage to city buildings. Every single city building is damaged. And the buildings at the City Hall complex, which is what I'm going to talk about because we're going to have someone else come behind me about recreation. But the main City Hall complex where you would go to a council meeting, there's 3 buildings. They go by letters, building A, B, and C. A is the front one where you go to a council meeting. It's a 1-story building. B is the building that had council, the mayor, and code. And C is a 4-story building and had a variety of departments in there, as well as IT, and that's where the credit union is. All right. So when we looked at it and we came up with this level of damage, the question was, do we repair this or do we replace this? When you have, and you probably know this from your own houses, if you have more than 50% damage, you have to bring that building up to current code. None of our buildings are up to current code. That's embarrassing, right? We're the city. But none of our buildings are up to current code. And one of them, the building C, a portion of that building is below the crown of the road, which means it would literally have to be elevated. So what we did is hire a contractor to come in after the stabilization, after the mitigation, and come in and look at the buildings and say, what would it cost to repair it, and what would it cost to replace it? FEMA kicks in, and I see my FEMA experts back there, so I'm saying the wrong thing. They're going to wave at me. But FEMA is after your insurance, right? You apply for insurance, insurance pays you, then you go and ask FEMA. You can ask FEMA to help you rebuild if you're above 75% damage. We're above 75% damage in all 3 of those buildings. If you can roll up Building A first. Okay, so here's Building A, and this $4,039,000 is the cost to repair it, right? I'm sorry, rebuild it. $4,196,000 is repair. In other words, it's 104%. It's way above 50 and way above 75. As a standalone building, the recommendation is to replace that one. Next. All right, Building B, the one that's got council, mayor, and court code, is at 95%. The total rebuild is 5.4. The total repair is 5.2. The third building, Building C, had a damage from Hurricane Zeta. So there was already a multi-million-dollar claim with the insurance company on Hurricane Zeta. We had not received compensation for that. The repairs had not been done, and then Ida came along. So as you can imagine, this is sort of an insurance nightmare. On Building C, it's still above the 75% mark, right? So we're at 85%, 95%, and 104%. So at this point, the council is going to need to make a determination once we have gotten all of this stabilized. Council's going to need to make a determination whether we're going to rebuild these buildings or we're going to replace them. There is a program with FEMA called the 428 program where you literally can go in and say, guys, I can do a better job. If you give me all the money and then I put it all together, I can build something different and better. One of the proposals was to take buildings A, B, and C, the functions in buildings A, B, and C, as well as some functions in other buildings which were damaged, and combine them into one city hall. That is a fabulous opportunity. We wish we hadn't had this opportunity, but now that it's here, the opportunity to be able to create a functional city hall that is up to code, it is green, it is resilient. So that is the option. Again, the council is going to make this determination. We're simply providing the information, but we're also, once we have the plans drawn up, we also want to have public meetings so the people can tell us. Just because I think one building's good doesn't mean everyone else thinks that, right? So you may have some ideas about where you think what's more convenient for you. But the plan would be to rebuild on the current City Hall campus, where we are at the end of West Metairie at Williams Boulevard. So for us, this is temporary. And if you've ever felt like you're going to fall through a styrofoam wall before, you realize, yes, this is super temporary where we are. We are doing the best we can in this location. The second floor and third floor are uninhabitable. Right now, we have probably 60% of the first floor. Our maximum anticipated spread down here is 72 to 80,000 square feet of the first floor. We will be paying rent. Our rent will be based upon the square footage value of this property, and the square footage value times the number of square feet we're using. Initially, that's paid for by the insurance company for relocation cost. Then it is paid for by FEMA. Right now, FEMA paid for 100% for the first 2 months? Okay, and then 90%? We're at 90% now. So 10% is coming from the city coffers, 90% is still coming from FEMA. We anticipate at the end of the 6 months, which is January, we're going to ask for another 6-month extension. In the meantime, we'll be coming back to the public, to the council, and at our next town hall meeting to tell you what our options are. So this is just 3 of the buildings that were damaged, but these are the 3 buildings that were so damaged, that's why we're sitting here tonight. So at this point, Mayor, I guess you're going to turn it over to Recreation, because that's the majority of the buildings that got damaged were gymnasium buildings. But anyway, I'd be happy to answer questions at the end.
Thank you, Deborah. And we will go into Recreation. I've said this already, that the gyms were damaged, our playgrounds were damaged. There's things that we've had to do, working with the insurance companies. I know I sound like a broken record because I keep saying the same thing, but this is a breakdown of where we have been, where we are, and where we're going. And I want to give credit to our Recreation Director on the things that he has done to be he's been very creative and innovative to create some programs that we can't do at certain places, but other things that we can do. So Charles Alon is a Recreation Director. He's going to come up and say a few things about where we are at Recreation, but I do want to praise him and his department for where we are going with the things that we can do to get our youth back involved in recreation until we get back where we need to be with our gyms and our playgrounds. Charles?
Thank you, Mayor. You can go to the first one. So basically where we are, when you look at where we are first, before we get to the good news of what we're doing with our limited availability and where we're going from here, when you look at where we are, first of all, the number one thing that really sticks out, 8 of our 9 gyms are not usable right now. They do not have floors in them. They've all been picked up. They are all in the remediation process. Insurance, FEMA are all involved in those facilities. And until those are put back in usable condition, we're not able to hold things like basketball or volleyball. So we're trying to be creative, and you're going to hear about that in just a moment. But I want to first take you through some of the damage assessments at these facilities. Go ahead. Get to the first one, if you don't mind. So let's start in Buddy Lawson. A large portion of the sport court it's a type of sport flooring that is in pieces, so they snap together. So in this case, you can take out parts, you can take out the whole thing. There's a large portion of the court in Buddy Lawson that has been picked up due to water damage that was underneath the court itself. We've also had a number of fence damage, and as you see as we start progressing through each playground, you're going to hear a lot of repetitive. Water damage to the courts no longer in the gyms, fences down. That includes outfield fences at baseball fields. That includes surrounding fences to get to playground fields, and a lot of electrical issues with lights out. For example, at Buddy Lawson, the entire west side of the long, essentially what would be third baseline, all of those poles are completely out. So we're still dealing with trying to figure out a solution of how do we get those things operational again. This is one of the few fields, though, that was cleared early for activity. So we have had some teams that have come out there and practiced on the large field, but no one's able to utilize the gyms yet. When we go over to Butch Dewey, what you see there, as well as at most facilities, is a lot of the baseball field backstops are either broken, the concrete that forms the backstops are broken. Many of the poles with the netting, the foul ball netting, are bent in different directions, and in the process of them bending, essentially cracked all the cement that forms the backstop on a number of those fields. As well, we have damage inside the gym. Here you see Butch Dewey with the entire floor up with water damage from the roof. They've even had to take sheetrock out. It's a little hard to see, I'm sure, from the back, but each of these poles holding the netting for the foul balls are essentially in different directions and putting pressure on the concrete or cement cinder block that surrounds the field to form a backstop. Again, we'll just continue on, Mike, if you don't mind going to the photos. You go to Galatas. There's two of our gyms that had hardwood floors. That's Musbertolino and Galatas. Both of those floors have been removed as well due to water damage, seepage either from roofs opening up and water coming in from the roof, or water coming in through other resources. We've had a lot of awnings that have been peeled back. The top left picture you'll see is the press box near the baseball field at Galatas. It was completely imploded. Go ahead. Green Lawn is one of the fields that we now have in a position that we can use. And one of the good signs is we opened up kickball last Saturday. There were 129 kids who signed up. So we had roughly 250 to 300 people out there at one time. Great feedback from parents. A few of the older kids we were able to speak with that at least some activity is occurring. Like the mayor brought up earlier, and what he tasked me with very early in this recovery process was to be creative and come up with ways that we can try and get this going, because the main structure of recreation is severely broken right now. And it's going to take a while to get these structures fixed. So we have to be creative with what we do. Again, Lincoln Minor, we have light poles snapped in half. Again, an entire court that has been picked up and stacked as they remediate through the process. And then the long process as we return back to these gyms is when these courts go down, it's not as simple as let's just snap it all back together. It needs to be snapped together so the basketball lines line up and the volleyball lines line up, or you can start over. It's literally a human jigsaw puzzle. So if they're numbered, it makes it a lot easier. If they're not, it'll get real interesting to figure out how to get this back down. Go ahead. Musbertolino took on a pretty heavy hit between overhangs, awnings, outfield fences. Now we have graffiti happening on backstops. The big baseball diamond, which is closest to the football field, there was an entire section of bleachers that were thrown on top of the dugout, which ended up pushing it not only towards first base, but it also broke the cinder block in front of the dugout. We have a 40, 50-foot light pole that broke and fell through the fencing, through a dugout, and is laying on a field as well. So there's a tremendous amount of debris out there, including the football press box, which the back wall, thank goodness it actually didn't blow out, and it just opened up a little bit, so the wind must have gone through it, through the broken windows in the front side, and out of the back wall. Due to that danger of that thing possibly collapsing, we were limited in how we could conduct football season. So Kenner Discovery did play a couple of home games there. They were limited to the visiting side only. They were well aware of that before we played. And we made it work. They want to play there as their home site, and we found a way to make it work that was also safe for the public to be there. So again, it's just working, communicating, and trying to figure out what are our best options. Susan Park, again, the entire court being picked up. We also have temporary roofing there to mitigate any potential leakage. Go ahead. Same issues at Wentwood. There's two sets of bleachers that are one sitting on a pile of mud that would be used on the fields. Another set is on a fence line. We have flooring and sheetrock up in some of the offices, as well as court space inside the gymnasium. Woodlake probably suffered the most damage. Probably, I would say about a third of the roof to Woodlake peeled back, and there was significant water in there. And just in the few days following the storm, Robin in KTV's actually sent me a video she had shot, and I think the mayor may have been with her. And just in walking on the court, again, these are squares that are snapped together. As they stepped on the court itself, there was water coming through each square. So it was significant water underneath this floor, essentially making it float. So that floor is completely up. The roof is secured in terms of no leakage coming in. And what you also see at Woodlake on the side of the building, that there's a square that is taped up right now. And that is not from a window busting. That is actually some object went through the side of the building, through the metal, and there's a tremendous amount of aluminum or metal roofing that is on the back side of the gym now that we're not really sure all the different places it's come from. There's also big light towers at Woodlake as well that are down. So how do we get to the good news? Well, we have one gym, and that's at Woodward, right across from Canes behind the fire station. We're still limited where we can't have basketball yet, but our martial arts floor is in there. Our tumbling for gymnastics is in there, and another rubber matting that we could do some art classes. So very quickly, or once we had all this in place, we were able to offer some paint classes. They all sold out pretty quickly. I'm not selling out with 100 people, but selling out for what we could fit in this limited space. The tumbling classes for Wednesday night and Saturday morning sold out very quickly. The martial arts classes picked up because he was in mid-session prior to the storm. So they picked up and they're finishing those. They actually, I believe, are doing belt tests on Saturday. And then they will be complete, and then we'll be able to reopen a new session probably right after the holiday. Go ahead, Mike. What are our plans? Well, like I said, right now we have kickball that's really good numbers. The numbers are certainly have declined over the last 6 or 8 years when I go back and chart sport by sport. So we have to be creative. We have to stop comparing and start competing. And the way to compete is stop talking about what's offered in JPRD. We don't have to compete with them. What we have to do is provide things for our kids and then even some adult programs, and give them opportunities. And how do we do that? Well, part of my vision is partnering with local businesses that can help us, and then also offering things that maybe JPRD doesn't. For example, we've already partnered with Coconut Beach. It's one of the premier beach volleyball complexes in the United States. And we're going to offer recreation beach volleyball this spring. And I have an AVP Tour Pro who is from New Orleans, one of the only males from New Orleans to ever play on the Pro Tour. And he's going to be our initial coach and help us try and build this from zero and get some involvement. Why is beach volleyball something that the kids may be more into? Well, for parents to know, many of the local universities now have beach volleyball teams with scholarship opportunities. It's an opportunity for kids to learn a new sport that's not offered somewhere else, that they won't leave us to go to. They'll be coming to us, and to bring in some local talent to get this going for us and build upon. The other things, we've talked with the bowling alley on Williams to offer recreation bowling. We have First Tee NOLA. We've met with them. Mr. Raphael Sadi helped us initiate that conversation. And they utilize the game of golf to teach not just the fundamentals of the game, but also the integrity of the sport and how those values translate into everyday life. So we're going to partner with them to even introduce golf. And you say, well, how many kids can do that? Well, they provide the clubs, they provide the lessons, and they have had over the years a number of kids that have gone on to play college golf as well. So it's about creating long-term opportunities as well as initial sports that they can play. Other things we can get into as things progress is self-defense classes for both adults and kids. Pickleball, which is a big sport for the adults. I don't think there's too much interest yet for the kids, but certainly for the adults. Soccer is on its way. As soon as we get a couple of fields clear, soccer is going to be back as a recreation activity for the city of Kenner. And as we continue, the martial arts, the tumbling, the painting classes. So we have a good plan going all the way to the spring. And at that point, we'll know where we stand and how we can regroup heading into the summer and next fall. And basically at that, you know, we need to take advantage of what we do have available today and not worry about sitting here for 4 months waiting for things to be repaired, because it will take a while. We have to be active, we have to be proactive and figure out what will work. And if something doesn't work, we'll just try something else. And other opportunities, just for the last thing I'll say here is you know, one of the other things we were able to do that the mayor wanted early on was figure out a way to secure Bertolino, get the track open. I had two great conversations with Ms. Alessandro, and we talked about the track, and I spoke with the mayor, and we found a way to make that secure enough that people could still get out there to the track. And it's been open a couple of weeks now. And our guys, I told our guys that are locking that at night, that if people are still out there right at the time they're locking, try and work with them a little bit if they can. And I think that's worked out pretty well. So that's kind of where we are and where we're going. I think we have a lot on the plate to get to. So please be patient. As the mayor said, it takes time, just like at our own homes. But we do have a plan, and we're going to execute that plan.
Thanks, Charles. So we've talked about what Ida's done to us, how we've been hit by that, but we want to talk about the future also. Since I took office, economic development has been one of the most important things for the city to move forward. Of course, our police, fire, and our public works are the main things of a city. But to make this city move forward, I have continued to push for economic development. We brought in an economic development consultant. We formed an economic development board comprised of people that I appointed and each and every council person appointed, and I believe also the chief of police. So we have a wide range of people on the economic development board. There's been, we've done a lot of ribbon cuttings. Some people don't like it, I get it. But when you do those ribbon cuttings and you get the economic development consultant and the economic development board with her group, her own office, and they're here tonight, and they go and get someone to come in for free to do a grant to tell us what can be done at the Esplanade Mall. This was before Ida. We had a town hall meeting on that. And also what can be done in Rivertown. Along with those ribbon cuttings, along with me, and I'll say it, I've been bragging about what this city has done with this administration, this council, my executive staff, of how many ribbon cuttings we've done to get attention. Yes, we need to get attention. But you know what? It worked. Because all those things that we did attracted the attention of a Kenner businessman and a Kenner resident, Ronnie Maines. He has come to us, and we've been working on this for quite a few months with economic development. Couldn't say anything. I believe the 3 council people that represent that area Christie, correct me if I'm wrong, you probably found out the night before I announced it. Christie, the other at-large, Tom Wilmot, and the district councilman found out the night before. Why? Because we have a non-disclosure agreement. We cannot go out there and talk about it. We want to talk about it, but we couldn't. But they were informed the night before I announced it, so they wouldn't be blindsided by it. And it was announced at the State of the City back maybe about a month ago. So Justin Gibson has been working very closely with my administration, I believe it's Adam particularly, Adam Campo, to make sure that this was going to get off the ground. And the talk of the past has now become a reality. So we're not talking about it anymore. We actually have something that's going to be a reality in Rivertown. I know there'll be some people that won't like it, okay? But we've got to move forward. We've got to move forward with Lake Town. We've already attracted attention in in Rivertown. We've already attracted attention in Lake Town. That's something we did a while back. We've got the attention of Atlantis. We have Treasure Chest Casino speaking with us and going before the Gaming Commission, I think within another week, maybe this week coming up, to get their land-based casino license. So we're moving forward at that end. We're doing as much as we can, as you've heard, throughout the city of Kenner. And now, at the other end of the city of Kenner, which we said we'd never forget, Rivertown, where everything started, we have Ronnie Maines with his investors, with Justin Gibson, who I'm going to call up now, to talk about where Rivertown is going. And I think you'll be very pleased. Justin?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for letting me have a couple minutes to talk about this exciting opportunity. We are, CRC Global Solutions is a Kenner headquartered company made up of Kenner residents. And when we heard about the TSW study that was being done, we put our brains together and came up with a concept that we think would give a great opportunity for all the citizens of Kenner, and even being an economic draw of bringing in people from other parishes into a lifestyle destination entertainment area in the Rivertown area, to redevelop it, bring some excitement. And the concept is basically taking all of the existing area that has been underutilized for years and repurposing it into a draw that will bring in excitement, bring in fun. Part of our motto is having, we're going to have food, festivals, but most importantly, fun. And that's what we want to be able to do in making this an area for not only Kenner residents, but also for the greater community. So we wanted to complement, one of the other things we worked on our process is making sure that we could complement both the existing and surrounding businesses in that area, but also the Kenner managed properties that are already there, in terms of, you have right now a fantastic planetarium, you have the Space Center, Science Center, and the Rivertown Theaters, all things that are great attractions right now for Kenner residents. But if we put a nice surrounding wrapper on that whole area, so you can come and spend a couple hours before going to the theater, or after enjoying a show, you'd be able to go and have area to have some food afterwards and things of that nature. In our plans, like one of our key things is, in the corner of the Heritage Park is having a 30-foot tall amphitheater. And that amphitheater will not only be a venue for some small live music, but also going to have a art that will be there that will be a kind of like a cyclical. So every 3 months that will be revitalized. And so it'll be a draw for people to come in and enjoy the aesthetics of a changing, kind of like a living art concept, if you can think of that. The other big draw that's going to be with this is that we will be able to drop down a silver screen and be able to have movie nights and things like that during our more temperate weather periods, and make that, again, we can have G movies and things like that out there. That will be a nice draw for people to bring the families. We can do Christmas movies around that time of year, things that also will make people want to come to that area and do that. Obviously, many of you are already familiar with, there's the bridge across the pond. Want to be able to revitalize that after the storm that was completely damaged and is unusable at the moment. But again, it's been a nice focal point of, I know in my time before the storm, folks would be taking pictures there. A lot of, memories are made in that park. We want that to continue. We want that to be where we will be a part of doing that. One of our cornerstones is going to be bringing a brew house on the corner of Williams and Reverend Wilson. The main feature of that is going to be a rooftop bar that will allow the folks that are up there to be able to see the activity on the river and, again, enjoy that nice view that's up there that right now, and really, I don't think in Jefferson Parish there is any venue that has a view of the river, certainly not on the East Bank. And so that will also be a nice big draw into the Kenner area. And here's a rendering of how that rooftop bar will be set up. So again, you'll be able to see the activity on the river and enjoy what's right now not able to be seen through the levee. So we'll have up and above. One other area that is, I think, one of the areas that I've enjoyed working on the most is we're planning on revitalizing the observatory building that has the ability to have a telescope in there that we can then use as a draw to not only complement the planetarium, the science center, that type of STEM type education component, but also to make, having the exposure to science exciting and fun, because what the astronomer who will be in here will be able to simulcast both the video screens down below and then also back to this large screen in the amphitheater, so we can have more people enjoy learning about astronomy and the sciences and things like that we can do both daytime and nighttime. This telescope will be able to also observe during the day with different sun objects and changes like that. So in probably January, we'll be having a large press conference and launch with more information in terms of the tenants. But again, our work has been making sure that we are going to populate this with complementary businesses as well as local establishments that we have all enjoyed in other locations but have had to travel outside of the city to enjoy. Our goal is to pull some of those in and get those in there. So there will be no national chains in there. This will all be organic, local establishments that most of you are already enjoying. But again, we want to bring them into Kenner. We want us as Kenner residents and as the developers to be able to enjoy this area.
Thanks, Justin. So we've gone over a lot of issues, a lot of things that are going on in the city of Kenner, ended it with that. I do want to end it with one thing, and Dominic left before I had a chance to call him up. When Dominic was Dominic Impastato, our parish council, was very, very involved in the very early stages with helping with the recovery and checking on it. So look, he's got a big district, I know, I've had it, but he's got a lot in Metairie, but he also has here in Kenner. He's been very supportive, but one thing he would always say, and the council people will be able to tell you this when I call them up in a minute, is that Kenner had it together. He would go back and he would tell other colleagues on the parish council throughout Jefferson Parish, you got to look at what Kenner's doing. And every time he came back here, he would say, y'all have it together. And I want to echo those words. It's not me having it together. It's the people that myself and the council are surrounded by. The council members have said in the past, the staff and the everyday workers, police, fire, down to the guys, that are out there on the street every day, they have it together. So when people say, or you hear me say that Kenner has it together, I'm not talking about myself. I'm not talking about, and the council is not talking about themselves. We're not tooting our own horns. We're talking about the people of the city of Kenner that are doing this for all of our residents. And also, I think he meant also, and I'll say this, that the residents have it together. The residents have been very, very cooperative. There has not, I checked with Tiffany Wilkin probably every week to say, what's the feedback early on with coming in here to code, because that was the first department here, and also to, like this past week, what's the feedback from the residents? The feedback from the residents is, we love it. We love what y'all have done, we're happy with it, and that's what we want to hear. We also want to hear what we're doing wrong, but we're not really hearing that too much in this building with the people coming to code. So look, there's been some quirks here and there that we've had to straighten out and little issues. for any resident, we straighten those things out. So I want to thank the executive staff. I want to thank the directors, the assistant directors, EOC, everybody that's involved, down to the guys that are on the street and the ladies that are on the street every day, our police, our fire, everyone working with us. I want to thank the council. The council has been very cooperative throughout all this. You know, they were sweating out there the days after Ida with me and my staff and all the volunteers. I want to thank Joe Stagney, who stepped up to the plate right away, our state representative that stepped in and said, probably the night of the storm, as I'm texting Ronnie Maines, not about this, but about getting water in, because we didn't have water. Stagney helped with that. Talbot helped with that, Kurt Talbot. There's been numerous people, and I probably shouldn't start naming people because I'm going to forget people, but there's been numerous volunteers that have stepped up to the plate also and have helped. So we are appreciative of all those entities, all those individuals that have made it happen. When you talk, now just before I turn it over to the council, because this is a town hall meeting, this is not Ben Zahn's town hall meeting, this is the town hall meeting for the city of Kenner. So any council person that wants to speak, you need to start coming up here. When we talk about the water, you do realize why we suffered the worst part of the water, because I was talking about how we got water in. And I knew this was going to happen because in the past with the parish, when we had a freeze, we lost water because they turned the water off to the city of Kenner. So rest assured, we're working very closely with Dominic Impostata, the two at-larges, and even though it's not going to be in Byron Lee's district, but he still represents South Kenner, we are working with them to get some type of a water tower here in the city of Kenner. So we're not beholding to the parish for water, but we're not beholding to getting cut off. We need our own water tower. So remember that. That's something this administration with this council is working very, very closely with the parish government to accomplish here. I won't start in any particular order, but I know Mike Seward did tell me he wanted to say a few words. You're the first district. It doesn't matter. Whoever wants to, if the council wants to weigh in, you're closest, Mike. George? You want this?
What I wanted to say is that the Recreation Department has a lot of problems with the facilities, and I really believe that the things that Charles will do to get that back is a big deal, and he's thinking outside of the box, and I think that's very important to get our Recreation Department back. Been very involved at Bertolino through the years, and definitely want to see that facility back up and running, as of all of the other ones too. But we're in a good spot with Charles. So.
I don't have anything, just generically say thank you all for coming. I think it's exciting to have all of you guys here. I want to hear your questions. I am going to have to cut out a little earlier, but I'm just excited to have everyone here, and I want to hear your feedback and what you think the state of the city is.
Thank you. Thank you. Right, you still sorry.
That's okay. I know I'm blending into the wall.
You were over here.
Yes. Good evening, folks. Thank you all for being here. The only comment I'd like to make, and the mayor kind of got close to it with the team of employees in this city. And during this, one of the directors, who's now a big director, and I was speaking one day, and his comment was, thank you, he had never, hello? He had never seen morale during and after a storm from all of the workers like he had seen. And this man's been with the city for over 15 years. And I think for what we went through, for what the city has gone through, for a director to talk about the morale for the recovery, I think just speaks volumes. And I'm proud to be part of this team. I'm proud to represent my district and anyone that I can help in this city. And I think that's a goal of all of us. So thank you for being here. If there's anything we can do or I can do as the District 5 councilman, please feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you all. And again, as I've said, in case I forget toward the end, thank you all for coming. This is a very important part of government, is to have y'all come out and listen to what we're doing and then give us your feedback so we'll know whether we should continue or change direction. My point right now is just to pick up on some of what the mayor spoke about, how the city is moving forward. District 2, which I represent, and I'll brag because I take a lot of pleasure in this, has the largest number of businesses and commercial buildings in it. So I do get a lot of time with ribbon cuttings on businesses that have come to the city but just happen to be in District 2. So I wanted to give you a quick update on what's happening to those businesses that you may see closed right now and let you know what is going on. First shopping center that has a lot of activity is the Marketplace, where El Paso, Salad Station. It is now 100% leased. The open spots that you may see are going through the build-out for the businesses that have leased it, and will be moving in there in the near future as soon as they get their build-outs finished. You've already seen the Chrysler dealership open up. They came in right before the storm. They are doing well, like any car dealership in the city, but they are having the same troubles as every car dealership. You can't get a new car. You can hardly get a used car because of this chip issue, if you've read the news, that is prohibiting cars from operating. They're built, but they need this one little chip to make everything work, and those chips are in very short supply. So even though these dealerships are here and they're doing okay, you will see the lots looking somewhat empty. That's because of their struggling to get cars in, and then even the used cars go quicker because people need cars, and that's what they'll go grab. As you come down Williams Boulevard, where the Party Palace shopping store was, that building took a lot of damage. It's being renovated. I looked at it today. It's getting close. They got all the walls painted, it looks like. I don't have a commitment to say that Party Palace is coming back, but if I move down the street to where Burlington's was at, and they had the same problem, the roof opened up and they had to get all of their product out so the owner could get in there and fix it. You'll now see the sign, Burlington is hiring, so they are coming back. So I'm optimistic that Party City will also come back, but until that building is a little bit more finished for them to make that commitment, I don't have that for sure. When you continue down Williams, there's very little open spaces for smaller businesses. Those spots are filled. As we go down to south of I-10, the same thing. A lot of people are familiar with a long-time restaurant here in Kenner, Franny's Restaurant. Well, Miss Franny had retired some months ago, so the place was shut down. It has now reopened to the same similar type of restaurant. It's called Sunnyside Up, and they have a location in River Ridge also. So they're back up for a 3-meal-a-day service. We still have DoubleTree Hotel, which is shut down right now because of all the damage that they took in. But I spoke to the manager just yesterday, and they're struggling, but they're pushing hard to get their damages repaired so they can get back open. Not to, as the mayor said, when he had to keep this project sort of under wraps because of the non-disclosure that we sometimes have to get into to help a business come to the city, but yet give it time to develop, and he couldn't talk about that. I do have a similar project for Kenner that in the next 2 weeks I should have the ability to speak more openly. They will be closing on the sale of the property they're buying, but it's a multi-million-dollar retail of family entertainment. So we've heard that call, we needed it, it's coming. But I can't get into it right now, so give me a couple more weeks. With that, the city is viable. We are doing well. I know the CFO is probably not here to give us, oh, is she? Is our taxes still going up? All right. She's the one that can tell us. She knows when the sales taxes are up so that we know we are still a viable city, because that's what we do to bring in money is keep these businesses. So with that, I want to just, that's my state of the District 2, where all the bulk of the businesses are, to let you know that we are strong and we are still moving forward. So again, thank y'all. And Bob, it's not my meeting. I think they have cards, so I'll let. Okay, I don't want to. So thank y'all, and we're going to still be here to answer your questions.
We're going to go to Chris Fortunato with the questions on the cards, answer these questions. Is it Chris? And give it to the appropriate DCEO or CEO.
Thank you all for submitting your questions. And if you have a question that you'd like to ask, just raise your hand and we'll bring an index card to you. So everybody good right now? Then I'll continue. Okay. So for starters, we had some very similar questions related to Cox. There are several of them, so I'll let someone speak on the general subject of Cox. There is not a Cox representative. Oh, there is a Cox representative. Yay! Wonderful to have you here. Thank you.
Come on up. Thank you.
So I'll just.
And introduce yourself, because they may not know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members, and also staff. Thank you for the work that you do as well. My name is Kevin Monroe. I am the Vice President of Operations for the New Orleans market, which obviously includes the Kenner area.
So just some of the questions, and I'll kind of lump them together, and you
Please.
can address the group as a whole. When will Cox provide the services we pay for? We're glad you're here. A lot of people want to know if they're going to be reimbursed for their charges for services that were not provided during the outages, and also more recent or ongoing outages for Cox, which involves internet and pricing and cable and just general service. So I'll let you kind of speak generally to these questions.
Sure, absolutely. Again, thank you for allowing me to be here with you. A couple of things that I wanted to touch on. One, first and foremost, is we know that there are certain communities within the Kenner area that are experiencing outages on a more frequent basis. One of the things that we do as we go about doing our restoration work after a storm is we put up a lot of temporary service so that we can get to as many people as we can and get their services back on. So you might notice a temporary cabling across the line. You might notice a cable that needs to be strung up back on a drop that might be on the ground. Some of them need to be buried. But the reason that we do those temporary services, again, is so that we can get to as many customers as possible. Now, the temporary service is exactly that. It's temporary. It's not meant to be permanent. So what we're doing as we go through, as some folks have already talked about this evening, we see debris that is on the ground, and if that debris is in any way hampering our ability to get to those temporary services, then unfortunately we're not able to put those permanent services back in. So one of the things that I would like to ask of any resident that notices any type of debris around temporary services, please give us a call that customer care number, and we'll make sure that we come out and try and help clear some of that off of those pedestals that are out there, help clear some of it off of those cables that are temporary cables that are out there. Because unfortunately, what tends to happen in a lot of cases is as those trucks come by to pick up household debris or pick up rubbish, trees, and things of that nature, if they don't see, and a lot of times they really can't see what's piled up around the pedestals, or can't see the pedestals in the piles that they have around there, or can't see the temporary cables that we have laying on the ground, and it's covered up by their debris, a lot of times what tends to happen, unfortunately, is that it pulls out the plant that we have, and that causes outages. In addition to that, the temporary cables that we have and some of the pedestals that we have, the work that we're doing is coming back and after the storm, after the restoration portion of it, is coming back and installing new services so that anything that may have been damaged by the storm, water, or wind, we're able to get back out there and get that replaced so that we're able to provide the services that folks need.
Thank you. Could you address the question about the billing? Will customers be reimbursed for the services that they paid for but did not receive during the outages?
Yes, absolutely, they will. As a matter of fact, we did some proactive credits, but if there is a outage that is after the storm even, if you call into our customer care number and let them know that you have had an outage, and they see that there's been a trouble ticket that's opened up, or they see that there has been a network ticket that is serving against that particular outage, then they will do credits.
So the customer care number is whom we should call for
Yes,
for
the
those
customer
questions?
care number on the invoice,
Okay,
on the bill.
because folks, you're not alone. The city of Kenner has even had our issues with getting our Cox service back. So thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think that kind of sums up the Cox-related questions.
Yeah, So yes, let me address that. So I'm trying to make sure that you understand that we want to make sure that we're going to get to all of those customers that are currently having outages. Now, going back before the storm, we obviously know that we need to do some upgrades to our network plant. So those are one of the things that we're looking to do at this particular point. November of last year, we started doing digital nodes, and I really don't want to get into a whole lot of the actual infrastructure piece of it. But what I'll say is we started upgrading our nodes to digital nodes. Now, that's going to take a while for us to get to all of the nodes within the Kenner community. We're actually doing this all across the New Orleans footprint. But digital nodes is what we're upgrading our services to. So if you still are experiencing outages, I can tell you that the infrastructure is working, that we're working on now is working to be upgraded within the next 6 months or so, we should. Yes.
Stuff.
I'm sorry?
What about the fiber optics?
Fiber optics?
Moving on to fiber optics.
We have fiber optic.
I know you do. You had it in New Orleans East before Katrina. When I was out there, it was laid in front of my house. But I'm in Kenner now. I teach at the university online, and across the entire city of New Orleans, my students are having a terrible problem with Cox, not just in Kenner, but everywhere. Dropped in the middle of a test, these drops that occur, I pay for Gigablast.
Sure.
I maybe get 600 megabytes. Well, wait a second. The FCC says I'm supposed to get a gigabyte. I'm getting 40% of what I pay for.
And have you opened up a trouble ticket with this, sir?
How many trouble tickets can I have? I've already opened them up hundreds of times. I've dealt with the council, who has been very helpful to us in trying to contact you all to get this fixed. But for our kids, right now, we teach a lot online. If we don't have this infrastructure, they can't learn. I'm a physician. I talk to other physicians. They have to have AT&T as a backup because when Cox goes out, they can't get to their records, which are all electronic now. You need to step up and do the job.
So we do have fiber optics. I want to make sure that's.
How about in Kenner?
Yes, we do have fiber optics in Kenner. As a matter of fact, Jefferson Parish has more of the fiber optics in its infrastructure than any other footprint in the metro area. So Jefferson Parish, Kenner, we do have fiber optics in those areas. The fiber optics that we have, though, doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have fiber optics fiber going directly to the home.
Dr. Curel, if I could ask so we can continue our, the rest of the questions, if you would mind staying afterwards for just
Sure,
a few
we can
minutes to maybe
absolutely do
speak
that.
with Dr. Curel separately and anyone else. So thank you very much. So we'll move on
Absolutely.
to our
Thank
next
you.
question. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have asked that, that one question per card. So thank you, Mr. Oscar Medina, who's asking this question. Why was this the building that the city moved into? Deborah, or?
I know these questions were asked before the presentation, so just forgive me. But the reason we moved into this building is because this is the only building that was large enough, that was empty, and that we could actually was physically in a good condition. Believe it or not, this building had almost no storm damage. There was one door that's on the Target side that blew in, and everything else, it's like, it's a fort, you know. So that's why we're here. This was the only place that we could move to.
Another question from Mr. Medina. Why do people have to live with a tree on their home and fight with insurance.
I mean, I know that's a general question. I don't know where Mr. Medina is, if you can give me a specific.
Location?
The same question, the tree on the house at Maddock and Champaign.
Question, okay.
Yes, look, we're very aware of that tree. Look, I know a lot of people call that a city tree because it was rooted in the right-of-way. And I think Councilman Segura has previously brought up some conversations with this that, I mean, look, it was planted in the right-of-way. Once that tree falls and impacts a house, that is the private property, that is the owner. The city will not go on and remove the tree that is impacted on your private property. Look, we have that particular address, I believe the resident does not have insurance. We have reached out and had some faith-based organizations, I believe, try and go out there and assist as well.
In fact, if I may, we've done quite a bit to try to address that situation as recently. We've advised the lady, I've talked to her a number of times. It's a very sad situation for her, but it's also, I think it's also, it's becoming a blight. It's a safety concern. I do know that the caution tape got put up a week ago, and that's a positive thing. However, the city had, I guess, just at some sort of, let's get real level here. The tree is a hazard. It's not going to get moved until the house gets sold or something of that nature occurs. It's a hazard until then. I'm told kids are playing under where the tree has fallen, under where the roots ball is. We've done everything from, Deborah knows I was in contact with her 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks after the storm. It is on city property. There are parallels in the commercial code that if that were a commercial property, then that tree would have been taken care of by now. If FEMA is paying to take down trees on the golf course, and FEMA is paying to take down trees on the medians, and has done that with hundreds of trees, we have this one circumstance where the owner is unable to take care of it. It is on city property. I understand that there's a desire on the part of the city not to set a precedent that they're going to start taking care of trees that falls on people's houses, and I understand that argument. But is there a way within administrative interpretation of administrative laws and the rules, that the city has the authority to take care of this particular problem? Because if it doesn't, I don't think it's going to be taken care of. I even tried to get a owner of a rental company to donate the use of equipment so we could muster a crew to take care of it, and that wasn't going to, I talked to the lady at Code Enforcement about that this morning too, so I understand Code Enforcement could eventually step into that situation. It's a bad situation for the homeowner. It's a bad situation for the public. It's a traffic hazard. It's a hazard to children. There's got to be some level of discretion that can be practiced here on this.
This is our city attorney, our interim city attorney, Joyce Sala.
How you doing, sir? Generally, as Chad said, generally the law is, and it's not an interpretation of the administration, the law is generally, it is the homeowner's responsibility when a tree, even if it's planted on a city servitude, but again, I'm not saying that's what you're saying, or I don't know what you're talking about, but if that is the hypothetical we're talking about, it is the homeowner's responsibility. Now, where it becomes a hazard, then that's something that code can look at, and we can see in that particular situation. If you're saying they're kids and stuff, and I don't know, you're saying you spoke to someone from code today, and I don't know if anyone's here from code.
Yep, Tiffany's here.
Okay.
Tiffany,
Tiffany.
come on up, Tiffany.
Hold on 1 second, sir. I'm saying if it is a hazard or at some point, then code can look into that and see if it falls under that, but under.
And I don't think the lady is here tonight, but I did talk.
Ms. Wilkin is here?
I'm sorry.
Yes, I did speak with him, and where I explained to him that code would step in would in fact be to enforce the codes, which would be to cause the homeowner to repair her home. And I don't believe the council and the administration is and you understood what we talked about.
Oh,
He wants code to get involved, but code's
wait,
actually gonna go
I-
after the homeowner, right?
I'm looking,
So we-
look, I've been to talk to the woman, I've talked to everybody from Scalise's office to the city, to George, I've talked to the woman myself a half a dozen times.
The homeowner, yeah.
The homeowner, I have great sympathy for the situation,
Right.
but at some point it has to be resolved.
Correct, and I told him there will be a date certain
Right.
that we
But
will
I wanted to make
determine.
one additional point. I did speak also with the lady who lives directly across from that property. And she said, because she told me, she said, I've been trying to get the city to do something about the tree on my corner, and this tree, and she's referring to the tree that fell. And she said the city came out and looked at it. And so there's some history of that tree as a hazard having previously been reported to the city. I don't know if that's known or not, but apparently that's part of the circumstance. And again,
Okay.
I'm saying, where's the discretion that can be practiced here?
And that's something that myself, and I'll speak to Ms. Wilkin, and we could look at in terms of whether there was history. We'll have to research that and get into that, sir. But I'm just saying, in general, just because a tree is planted, whether with, and planted without the city's permission, because people are not supposed to be planting those trees there anyway, which is an issue, a separate issue, and I'm not going to get Councilman Segura started, but
No.
that's a separate issue that we need to tackle and we plan to tackle as a city. But
Joyce, maybe you can
legally-
speak with Mr. Bales
sure.
separately
And we will
after-
talk
after
to
the
you,
meeting.
sir, about that.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
And we'll,
Our next
we'll
question.
look more into that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Our next question comes from Mr. and Mrs. Cusimano, both related to IV waste. Can the city of Kenner pick up loose trash on the ground left by IV waste? So we just need to know a location. So Chad can address that. And also, what is the city's future with the IV waste?
So yeah, I mean, look, we get sporadic complaints here, and look, I will absolutely tell you, reach out to my office, and I can give you my card at the end. 468-7515 is our main office number. We'll address those. Look, the beauty with IV waste is they have cameras 360 degrees on their trucks. So if we get a complaint, we order that footage. They do pull in their operators. They do pull in their hoppers and you know, try to keep it from reoccurring again. We are still, just so you know, what we have currently 90-plus days out is we're still about 155-plus tons over what we were last year. So every week, they're still picking up over 155 more tons of garbage. So there's a lot out there. Look, those guys are doing their best. It's a job that I assure you, not probably anybody in here wants to do. Look, I scold the guys sometimes because they're with their uniform. Well, they tell me, Mr. Chad, the reason I had to take my shirt off is because I dumped the garbage can and all the meat juice that was in there spilled all over my shirt. I can't smell it. I'm going to get sick to my stomach. So, look, those guys are phenomenal as well. We work with them. Please call my office. I'll give you my card at the end. We'll make sure we address any concerns you have with that.
Thank you, Chad. Next question is actually, the next three questions are from Stacy Alessandro. The first would be, how many contracts do you have with the same company that are under $100,000?
Stacy, I'll research that for you and get back to you. Where is she? I'll research that and get back to you.
Hold it, Deborah. When will you put legislation before the council to ratify the $14 million in purchases for Hurricane Ida? That would be legal to answer. Want me to repeat that, or you've got it? When will you put legislation before the council to ratify $14 million in purchases for Ida?
Ms. Stacy? Hi, how are you doing? At this time, as far as I know, we don't have any purchases that need to be ratified, but if we did have something that needed to go in front of the council, we would do that immediately.
Next question from Ms. Alessandro is, are there any fire code and life safety issues at Macy's? Adam? And the second question associated with this is, are you aware of anything being investigated by the Louisiana State Fire Marshal?
So we're not aware of any current fire violations from the state's office in the Macy's, but our CBO is working with the fire marshal's office for their routine inspections of the building. So there is a report when they're done with it.
Next question is from Richard Brown for the mayor. What, if anything, is being done so the food giveaways are going to the needy rather than the greedy or the privileged? Is this related to food giveaways during Ida or a food bank?
Subsequent to Ida.
Okay.
The food giveaways during Ida?
Specifically, what we did before Thanksgiving?
Basically, yes.
Okay, we advertise it, say, for the first 200, 250 cars that come through. They're available to get what was donated by some vendors. I'm not sure what the question is, because we don't send out an invite list. We don't say, oh, this one's needy, this one's greedy. We just send it out on Facebook.
I'm just wondering if an effort is being made to reach out to those who you know are needy, such as those who regularly go to the food bank, et cetera.
Right, so our food bank, Community Services, takes care of the people that are screened, made sure that they are the ones that have needed. That's what I was trying to say, when you're talking about the food giveaways here, or the food giveaways not food giveaways, but the donations that go to the food bank. Donations to the food bank, all those people are definitely screened, and our director and assistant director do a great job of making sure those people are the ones in need. Look, we don't even check driver's licenses when you pull up to see if you live in Kenner. If someone needs something when they pull up, they need it. We did one we didn't do one, we helped CRC, Ronnie Maines, at the Vineyard Church, right before Thanksgiving, or right before. And he actually has a list. When you see us doing that, that doesn't mean we're doing it. I mean, CRC might be doing it with the Vineyard Church. He actually has a list that he uses, but he actually hands out vouchers. And that was how many? 500, Chad? I think it was like 500 vouchers he handed out. So, yeah, we're not, any kind of food giveaway, we're not screening anybody. If they come in through, we're just giving it to them.
Asking is, when they do all these, like when y'all were giving out water and all that, everything, yes, y'all put it out through the internet, but people didn't have internet. We have to go back to snail mail and let us know by flyers. And like me, we didn't have water. I had to go all the way to almost Texas to go get water to bring it home.
We used every resource available to us.
Another way to reach you when nobody has internet. We would love to know another way to reach you. Look, we don't set up, back by the levee in District 5 and hope nobody sees us. We set up in a very, very obvious spot in the Esplanade parking lot because everybody can see us. So
and there were hundreds and hundreds of people.
A lot of people in that. Next
question is from Mr. Bales.
Yes.
Electronic sign up down by the waste, the temporary dump, and there were postings that were done down there. In the future, and I know you all, debrief after every emergency to look, at how do you need to revise the plan or whatever. And an electronic sign like that, were it somewhere on West Esplanade in a more, in a highly traveled area that said, food and water distribution is available this week at the Esplanade Mall.
We've actually relocated those signs, multiple locations, to kind of do exactly what you're saying, spread the word. We'd move it from the river to the lake and everywhere in between.
Next.
Okay, next question is also from Mr. Bales. When and how are financial reports reviewed by the council, and how is this open to the public? Liz? When and how are financial reports reviewed by the council, and how is it open to the public?
So just in general, we do provide monthly reports to the council once the month is closed, once we get, all our entries in. I'm not sure as far as when it's available, to the public. Obviously, if there's any questions, you're always welcome to reach out to my office, and I can give you my card.
I think normally, because I observed some of the council meetings, I can't recall ever seeing a financial report.
Yeah, we don't provide it at the council meeting.
So many public organizations do that. It might be something the city would consider, quarterly basis or something. Here's the, presented to the council, because the council needs to know that, the public needs to know that the council has that information. And it should be out there and reviewed on a regular basis, whether it's in detail or not, available to the public as an agenda item on council meetings once a month or once a quarterly.
Okay, I appreciate your input.
Thank you. Okay, so as the mayor mentioned earlier, the response to Hurricane Ida from the City of Kenner employees, fire, police, our general services, our field services, the executive staff, the administration, the directors was just phenomenal. And the Department of Kenner Media produced this very powerful video. It's about 15 minutes long that we want to share with you just to kind of give you some perspective on what our employees went through. So if you would just give us a few minutes of your time. Thank you.
For us, the biggest change occurred on that Saturday when the storm intensified very, very rapidly. And it went from just I think a Category 2 hurricane all the way up to a Category 4.
We respond up until conditions deteriorate to the point where it's not safe for us to respond.
As the day went on, the weather got progressively worse, and that's when water started to come into the building.
I mean, there was lots of noises you're not used to hearing, which, it's very loud and kind of upsets you.
It seemed like it was over us for an extended period of time, and the amount of wind that was coming on shore was just relentless.
At one point, the building was shaking, was shaking so badly. I told Mike, I said, we were on the 4th floor at the time. I said, you think we need to go downstairs? And he said probably the best thing I had heard throughout the whole event. He said, if this building collapses, do you really want to be at the bottom?
The wind was getting up into the 120 mile an hour range at some point during the thing, and those windows were screaming, literally screaming. You couldn't concentrate on what you were doing. All you heard was those windows.
I was a little concerned about, how far it would come and whether or not it would impact, how much of the city would impact, and to what extent we would see any type of rise in water.
It started coming in through the stairwells, which you would think would be the strongest part of the building, but they have skylights at the top of it, so the water, even in a normal thunderstorm, water would come into those skylights, but it was almost, it was a torrent.
The stairwell was full of water.
I was upstairs on the 4th floor just watching it, and that's when I noticed I hadn't seen Mike in about 15 minutes, and I thought, I wonder where Mike is.
When I went outside to look for the hot spot, I didn't realize that the storm had somehow killed the power to that outside door, and when I tried to get back in, there was no electricity going through the door, so the cart swipe wouldn't work. And when I tried to pry it open, it was so wet from the storm, and with the actual winds blowing into that area anyway, it was very hard to move the door.
So I decided to go look for him. I don't know what something said, go look for him. So I went down to the 3rd floor, and then the 2nd floor, and then the 1st floor. And when I got to the 1st floor was pretty much flooded at that point, probably about 2 to 3 inches of water, except for one corner of it. And I looked to the right, which would have been the back door of the building, and I looked and I didn't see anything.
So I decided to go around the building to the other side to try that door. And while I was walking around the buildings, the wind was so bad that I ended up having to grab each of the parking spot poles, because I'm a 330-pound guy, and it was pulling me like I was a skateboard with nothing on it.
And I looked and I saw this silhouette outside, and because it was dark, and then Mike is just knocking on the door, so I ran over to the door because I realized he had been stuck outside.
Finally got to the back door, and that door would not open either. So I stood in the corner, just kind of huddled up facing the wall. It took both of us to pry the doors open because the wind was so strong just to get them in. And then at some point, Leon came downstairs and just kind of noticed me in the corner and came open the door, and I was freezing my butt off. So he was out there for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. And at that point, at least 120 miles an hour, sustained winds. You know, it was beating him up bad. Holy crap.
At the time the incident was reported to us, our phone lines are still up, so 911 is still up, and we received about 17 calls, 18 calls, somewhere 20 calls of reports of fire. At the time it was reported, I think we had sustained winds of about 80 miles an hour. And the last gust we had registered at the EOC here was around 112 miles an hour, which is, the wind in and of itself is totally ineffective for any type of water flow, because you know the wind speed will substantially misdirect a water stream. With no water pressure, we had to resort to an alternative means of water supply. And the guys did a great job of locating one. It was a loading dock for one of the buildings where the water just pooled, and they were able to draft and shelter water. It wasn't on the site of the fire, but it was away from the fire, and they did a great job of preventing any further spread.
I didn't think it was going to be that bad. I mean, I've been through hurricanes before, and that was pretty bad.
I was anticipating a lot of downed trees, a lot of power lines down. It surprised me the amount of debris that we had, as far as the amount of trees and power lines. The amount of power lines down was surprising to me.
The next morning, we went outside right at because I mean, we slept a couple hours maybe, and then as soon as the first light, we went outside to see that the roof had been ripped off of buildings A and B and landed in the tree and on the Greenwald Center behind it.
We ended up going through building B first. Literally as soon as we got the door open, there was the loudest screeching fire alarm I've ever heard. I mean, it literally caused pain. It was so loud. And we went through the buildings. All of building B's first floor, you could tell it had at least 3 or 4 inches of water. I mean, all the computers, the wiring, everything was underwater. I mean, you could see your footprints as you're walking.
No roof. Literally can look straight outside.
But as you see, it's a wipeout. Some offices are fine, okay, but the water damage has leaked in. So most of the assistants have problems. the good news is we'll figure this out. We'll rebuild somewhere and move on or find a new home somewhere.
Well, part of the challenge at that point was find anything, any place. Macy's was at that point unoccupied. Because it was unoccupied, because it had not been occupied in a long time, we had to start trying to put systems back together. The first week we had 3,000 square feet and we had signage up all over town, and it basically said, you know, no permit required to fix your roof, no permit required to fix your fence, but code is open in City Hall. The city is open in City Hall. If you have any questions, you can drive through. It was literally a drive-through. For now, to be able to say that every single city service is happening somewhere.
The amount of damage and damage to our infrastructure, our power infrastructure, was significant. And certainly the amount of wind was concerning.
But the reality of just looking at people's houses, when you're looking at that, this is Katrina without the high water, but it's more wind. So you're worried about the people. We have no water. We have no water pressure. So training kicks in. What's the first thing we got to do? We got to get water and ice.
That's good. That's good. You're good. Keep going all the way to the end. Good.
So a lot of our employees lost everything. And what they do the morning after losing everything is show up at work to help us, help the people of Kenner who've lost everything. So that's, I mean, it can make me cry, but that's one of the joys of what we get to do, because those people, our employees, will help people they don't know.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Sir, if you have a specific question related to one of the topics this evening? He's here, and he'll stay. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming tonight. That concludes tonight's town hall meeting.